is the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. How you doing? Oh my gosh, we made it. We made it to the end of 2019. I didn't think it was possible, but it is, because here we are, the last Page Publishing Book Club of the season. But we'll be back right after the first of the year. Let's get started with Renee Coles, a pastor and real estate salesperson outside Michigan. She made a promise to her mom and kept it by publishing Insufferable, based on stories her mom told her about dealing with abuse.
I made it fiction, though, because I needed to build some other characters around her story. I just didn't want it to be about abuse that she had suffered. So I had promised her that I was going to do it before she had passed, because her story is a tragic story of just silent abuse as a young teenage girl through married life, physical and mental abuse. It's how she fought one night for her life at the hands of my father, who was drunk and jealous and outraged, and he thought he had left her for dead in a pool of blood at home on our kitchen floor. So it started with that, and I tried to start writing it in 2008, but it's just being too painful. But I knew what I had promised her, so I just, into 2011, started building characters. And basically, the story is about three girls. They were teenagers, and they all kind of got their lives entwined with this one character, Marlo. He just knew how to get close to them. He was very handsome. He was married. He was much older. Two of the girls, Annie and my mom, and girl B, her cousin, they were both involved and didn't even know it. My mom shared stories about abuse with young girls that were like 12, 13, 14 years old, who became pregnant by older men in the church because they were raised very strict. And sometimes it would be even a family member, and how these girls were sent off to go down south and live with relatives until after the baby was born. Nothing that was cultivating those girls or nurturing them to make them believe that it wasn't their fault. It was left to believe that it was their fault. And they didn't talk about these things, and they just kept things to themselves, silently went on about their lives as best they could. A lot of them just hurt and never having anybody to, really tell them this is not your fault. They felt like this guy loved them. They didn't realize how abusive it was, how he took over their lives. He controlled them. They answered to him, everything. They answered to him.
So many messages there, right? About
Yes,
being a
there
woman,
is.
about being strong, about not standing up to men like this.
And Alice, especially with my mom, her dad being a pastor, in her marriage, when she would try to share these stories with him, he was like, "What are you doing?" And I think that was just how the men thought. So what are you doing to provoke this? She couldn't really talk to him because he wasn't hearing her.
Right. It was the woman's fault. It was always the
hmm
woman's fault. Always,
Yes,
always, always.
always. Had two book signings, but first book signing with friends and family members, they were like, wow, they can believe the story. And what amazed me so much, Alice, is how they read this book and they could relate to the characters and the feedback. It has just been awesome because it's a time hopping story, of love, faith, and innocence of the youth that was destroyed by, predatory men. But what really amazes me, oh my God, is how the men received it. The men like the book that have read it.
We talk about Me Too, and we talk about holding men accountable, and we
Right.
think we've come so far. No.
No, we haven't. Alice, this book starts with the late 30s and early 40s. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
But my mom, she was able to overcome what she'd gone through, which was amazing to me because I learned that it took some time with that power of faith and forgiveness. She always talked about forgiveness. Healing came for her, and she was able to live a happy life afterwards.
Oh, she was some woman, Renee. Thank you. Crystal Schluter teaches writing and composition at the College of Southern Maryland. She helps high school kids get into college. No stranger to writing or editing, but it was the loss of a fellow teacher and friend that inspired her to write her first book entitled Not Just Famous.
I literally sat down and wrote it all in one night. And then, of course, you know how the process of publishing is. It's a long and arduous after that point. So I actually waited 5 years after I'd actually written it to finally go ahead and get it published, because I actually wrote it for myself and for a very dear friend of mine. So really wasn't necessarily ever going to be published.
So what was the inspiration here?
It was the 5th anniversary passing of a very good friend of mine who was a teacher. And I was moving from my teaching in a high school, which is where I've taught for the majority of my 33 years of teaching. It's been in a high school. And I was moving from there into the college level. And so I was saying goodbye to a lot of very, very dear friends. I had taught in the same school for over 25 years. And so I had a lot of very dear friends that were teachers. And so it was a tribute to them and the work that they do every day in the classroom. So it's actually 2 things that are going on. It's a children's book, of course. So it is a book to encourage children to be creative, to face challenges, to learn something new every day, to be kind. And it just follows a young lady who is talented in many, many ways and ultimately decides that the way to use all of those talents rather than becoming someone who gets well paid and gets a lot of accolades. Instead, she steps into the classroom and decides to use all of that to encourage others to be creative and face challenges and to learn something new every day. So it's just passing on that, what most teachers do, which is passing on that kind of encouragement. She's Diane, and she starts out with watching other children going and getting on the school bus. And I'm sure you've known children like this in your life, where they're just eager, waiting for the day when they're going to be the one on the bus. And so she's waiting for the day that she can go in and be one of those students. And then she finally gets in there and she gets a lovely teacher who encourages her to learn and to be creative. And as she proceeds through her school days, all the way through elementary and up into junior high and high school, she finds herself many times helping others, encouraging others to do well and to challenge themselves. And so ultimately she ends up, it's sort of a surprise because the title, which is Not Just Famous, everyone along the way keeps on saying she's going to be a great athlete someday, but she doesn't become a great athlete. And she's going to be an artist someday, but she doesn't become an artist. And so in a sense, it's almost like a disappointment because she doesn't do all these great and wonderful things that make her, well acclaimed. Instead, she becomes, and I've heard this expression many, many times in my career, just a teacher. So the point of it, of course, is that being just a teacher is a really, really important place to be. And that's her choice. That's what she makes as a choice. It doesn't matter what you decide to be. Ultimately, somewhere along the way, a teacher, a mentor helped you get there. It is a calling. And one that I have been thoroughly, thoroughly pleased to have in my life. And I would love to encourage young people who look at the salary and go, but I would like to encourage others to take on that profession. It bothers me that there's so many older teachers that are now retiring, and there's just not a lot of young people who are interested in going into the field.
Hey, who knows, Crystal? Maybe this book will change some minds. Thank you. Dwythea Thomas is a cardiologist in Center Valley, PA, so it's no surprise she's written a book entitled The Heart of Cooking. But there's a lot of books out there, Dwythea, on healthy cooking. What makes yours a standout?
Well, I think what's different about my book is that it's written by a cardiologist. I don't see very many cookbooks out there that are written by physicians to begin with. And then specifically a cardiologist was recommending heart-healthy recipes. I think that's pretty innovative. So I've always had a passion for cooking. And, a lot of times I'm in patient rooms in the office and they ask about recipes. They ask about ways to get themselves healthier. And I figured if I wrote some of the recipes up that I tend to use in my own kitchen, and also just ones that I know about, which are heart healthy and innovative and more flavorful than the typical heart healthy cooking, I figured I'd be able to kind of get that out there.
The difficulty with recipes, I find, is that it's got to be easy. It's got to be quick. You can't ask me to go get ingredients that I have to go to a special store for.
Right. There are some ingredients that are probably different than the normal American diet in my book. But if you notice, almost every single one of the recipes is probably about a page in length in terms of the ingredients plus the recipes and steps, and it's all inclusive. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, the most important thing to keep in mind is any fruit and vegetable that you substitute for something that's unhealthy when it comes to, increasing carbohydrates, sugars, and all those things is better than, the alternative. However, there are some that, provide a little bit extra antioxidants and things that may be a little bit more beneficial for you. There are some fruits, for instance, that have lower glycemic index, which means that it doesn't increase your blood sugar as much as some other fruits. So, for instance, berries versus oranges and bananas and things, which tend to raise the blood sugar a little bit quicker and sustain it at a higher level. In terms of vegetables, almost every vegetable is good for you in some way, and getting the nutrients is important. As substitution of a vegetable compared to a carbohydrates, bread, pastas, rices, and things is always going to be better. So,
Is there any meat in your book?
there is. I think in moderation, it's okay. The old school thought of no red meat whatsoever when it comes to a heart healthy diet is kind of out the window at this point. I think it's a matter of trying to make sure you incorporate nutrients from all different directions, but not in an excessive way that potentially could be harmful. So even though, for instance, if somebody has issues with cholesterol or coronary disease where they have blockages in the arteries of the heart, it may be beneficial to restrict a little bit more than somebody who has other type of electrical heart disorders or structural heart disorders that may not necessarily be reliant as much on those type of diet restrictions.
What's the most harmful food we eat?
The most harmful food we eat is probably sugar.
Yeah.
If we look into simple carbohydrates like white bread, white pasta, white rice and things, they end up becoming sugar in our system. So the sugar that we ingest in sugary soft drinks and things, and also in alcohol, and also the pastries and desserts and things, they hit our system much faster.
So is your book available in the office?
We do have small flyers where they are able to see the information about the book and where they're able to purchase and get more information. But we are working on trying to sell it at the gift shops in our hospitals at St. Luke's.
All right, with you. Good luck. Speaking of food, Gary Steffens talks to us from Anchorage, Alaska, where he went on vacation 44 years ago, took up engineering, and never came home. Now retired, he's taken up modifying grain products to satisfy his need for a great sandwich. And who doesn't want a great sandwich? He's written a book with a very long title, The Trenched Bagel Sandwich Book, 100 Delicious, Gourmet, Easy to Make Every Day and Any Occasion Recipes. You even made a little tool.
It's called the Bagel and Buns Trencher. It's just a food preparation tool that compresses baked grain products to create a trench, and in doing so, you create volume in sliced grain products. And probably the most dramatic example of that is the bagel. And when you do, you can put things into the bagel. Or if you have a closed-face bagel, you can encapsulate the food. And what that does, of course, it allows for greater volume, greater variety. And when you actually consume it, you get more of it in your mouth and not on the front of your shirt.
Oh, well, that's always helpful. Is it better for you?
Yes, I think when you put variety into your food, and I say this because I've been pretty active all of my life, is that when you put a different variety into the food, you create more complex carbohydrates. And so you have a chance to eat healthier using this concept also.
Now, do we get the tool with the book?
No, you don't.
Oh.
That's in the process, and it's actually under patent application right now. But I used to use other kitchen utensils just to make that cavity so I could encapsulate more food. But this is just one tool that I have.
I mean, I dig out my bagels regularly because I like...
Yeah, I know.
It's just too much bread.
Yes, I'm talking about products that are already sliced. I say once you do that, you just get better sandwich satisfaction out of the whole thing.
And then after you do that, there's 100 delicious, gourmet, easy to make every day and any occasion recipes to choose from. Is that correct?
That's correct. And have you ever had a bagel tort? For someone that's a yogurt lover or cottage cheese lover or something else, the chance to place, like, let's say, hazelnut spread and top it off with yogurt and various fruit types and coconut. You can just layer things into a bagel rather than try to put them on top of a bagel. Just that concept alone with a bagel tort is, in my mind, unique. I don't know. You can't match the type of recipes that are in this book. You just can't. The book is very step-by-step specific I want people to be able to build a gourmet, nutritious sandwich and have fun doing it in 5 steps. And coming from an engineering environment, a picture speaks volumes. So I figured I saved myself 10,000 words per page by putting 5 or 6 pictures per page. So people could see it. Okay, it's easy to do to construct a gourmet sandwich. But yeah, you need to try the turkey, cranberry sauce, and cream cheese bagel on page 89.
I am all over that, and I'd like to see you do a YouTube video.
Well, I don't know that I'm aesthetically correct for that, but I have 3 wonderful looking daughters
There
that
you
know
go.
everything about it, that they should do the YouTube, and we are working on that also. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you. I don't think I'll set the world on fire, but we will get the message out, I think. John.
Gary, you never know. All right, we got to take a quick break, but we're coming right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
Hey, we're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. Good to see ya. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Noel Allen was in the Navy for 24 years, then raised money for nonprofits. Now he hunts, fishes, and writes in San Diego. His book was inspired by Moke, the incredible Labrador, which is also the name of his book.
We were together for 15 years.
Aww.
A little black ball of fur that she picked me out of the litter, and we started fishing and hunting together as an adult and a puppy, and she wound up her life into mine to the point where she went everywhere with me. And she was so smart. She probably knew 75 words in English. That's more than half my friends know. She just was one loving inspiration to me. They're just chapters of adventures we had together. An encounter with a rattlesnake, an encounter in Yellowstone with a grizzly bear, our being lost together while we were on a duck hunt alongside the Salton Sea, fishing the Colorado River together, and catching a catfish that I had on a line for me. Just story after story after story. We spent a lot of time traveling together, fishing and hunting. And so she was my constant companion.
Is there a particular story that stands out?
Oh, yeah. She went after a duck at the Salton Sea, and the duck led her out into the middle of the sea. And the water was very cold. It was winter time, and she disappeared from sight. But she barks when she's after a bird. And so I got a friend, and we started scouring the surface of the sea for her. We found her 5 miles out in the middle of the sea, still chasing that duck and barking, fortunately. That's how we pinned down where she was. You know, I cried, very emotional, 10 hours looking for her. And it's amazing that she was able to survive. Water was so cold, and pulled her into the boat, and she still wanted that duck, so we had to go grab that duck for her.
And this is a children's book?
Yes, it is. And I've deliberately made the print very large so that little kids could read it, because it will make a kid laugh and it'll make a kid cry, as I cried when I wrote it. I love to tent camp still, and anytime there are kids in camp, I invite them over to the campsite to read a story out of the book to them. They love it.
Very sweet story, Noel. Thank you. Well, speaking of animals, Robert Reed from Bowie, Maryland wrote Nature Topless 2 years ago when he was 17. Now he's ready to share his story.
So it's about a sea where animals live, and it's mainly about a panda named Edwina and how she meets a tiger named Garland. They get married and have a son, a boy panda, and his name is Robert. He's very fond of being a motorcycle driver. He likes to drive motorcycles, and a few years later, Robert gets great news. He's going to be a brother, a big brother, because Edwina goes to the hospital and she has another baby. Only this time it's a tiger named Thomas.
Aw. Is he happy about that?
Yeah, he is. Robert and Thomas, when they're old enough, they go to school and make friends with a cougar named Dora, a rabbit named Molly, and a skunk named Una.
Okay. That's cute. What do they do?
They work in school, and after school, they have a play date at Chang's house. That's what their family are called. Robert, Thomas, Edwina, and Garland are known as the Changs.
So they go over and they play, or what do they do?
They play, and to honor their friendship, they create a clubhouse that with themes of what they want to do when they grow up. Thomas wants to be a basketball player. Robert wants to be a motorcycle driver. Dora wants to be a cooker. And Molly wants to be a professional dancer, while Una wants to be a florist. They call the clubhouse a club castle because that's how it's shaped.
That's very cute. Why did you write this book?
I wrote it because I like animals.
So how many books have you written altogether?
More than I can count. I don't know what exactly. At least 20 to my knowledge, yeah.
But this is the first one you're getting published.
Yeah, because Nature Topless was not the first book I made.
Right.
Actually, the first book was a series. It was The Whale and Mermaid.
Does it feel good to be a published author?
It feels pretty good. In fact, I'm so proud. I can't believe it's actually coming true. My dream's coming true. Oh, and if I'm lucky, I might turn Nature Topless into a movie.
Ah, that would be great. Or a cartoon, even.
Yeah.
Because it's a kid's book, right?
Yeah, it's for children. It's actually for all general audience. It's rated G.
All right, Robert. Thank you so much for talking to me. You did a great job.
It was a big pleasure talking to you, ma'am.
Gene Griffin is a retired history teacher who's written a lot of newspaper articles, but Earth Day America at the Environmental Crossroads is his first published book inspired by the first Earth Day in 1970 when he was in high school.
The book is about the original Earth Day, which occurred back in 1970. And basically, I have focused on causation, the environmental issues of those times, and they were numerous. Of course, I delve into Nixon and his administration, his contribution. He's known as the environmental president, and Nixon in his first administration was very, very upfront about the environment, took the initiative, and made it a part of his agenda.
It's so interesting because Republicans were so much more involved in the environment.
They were. And, at that time, the environment and all these different issues that I write about cut across political ideology and across, the aisle. There was actually more partisanship than there is now. Today, we have a great divide,
Right.
And between the deniers and those who believe that something's going on in the environment with regard to climate change.
Right.
I start my book with the cranberry scare just before Thanksgiving of 1959. The Food and Drug Administration detected traces of herbicides, and they had to destroy a lot of it, basically. I moved from that into the Vietnam era, and it was shortly thereafter that basically in 1962, when the United States military started using defoliants, herbicides, in Southeast Asia. To defoliate the rainforest and also to destroy food crops that would be used by the communist Viet Cong. Water, air. I have a chapter on the nuclear contamination at the time, which was a huge issue in that there was testing by not only the United States, but eventually the Soviet Union, even communist Red China, of testing of nuclear weapons, you see. And this contaminated the air. And Rachel Carson picked up on this, and, it was a serious source of contamination, and she refers to it in her book, but it's not the driving force in her book. It was a silent, sort of invisible kind of contamination that nobody sees. Same with pesticides that contaminate fruit and vegetables and that sort of thing. So that's basically what the nuclear issue was at the time, the testing of nuclear weapons. I'm not so much interested in sales as I am raising the consciousness of the people who read it, particularly students and academics who will take these ideas and see that, the human beings are making an impact upon the environment and changing the environment. That's my purpose. I may sell one copy. I may sell 100 copies. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Gene, for reminding us of these issues, and let's hope we can do better in the future. Finally, Michael West is a retired security guard in Queens who started writing a couple years ago and just never stopped. His book, Spider's Web, was inspired by a horrible experience his mother had with insurance scammers.
Well, the idea came from, people are doing something like they're doing insurance work, which is not, it's not, in a way, it's a way that is not, honest. It's not an honest way of doing things. So I'm trying to put over to the public, that something should be done to correct this dishonest way of doing insurance work, putting people at risk, taking lives, all that. My mom got caught up in the insurance web and she died in it, People receive a lot of dividends, millions of dollars, and I was not very happy about this. So this is the writer's book. Story is about two teenagers leaving the homeland of Mexico to find the American dream. They get caught up in an insurance web. So courage and defiance are the only means of survival. They were asked to sign some documents which they didn't understand. So they send away the contract of life, they tell the people that if they die, the beneficiaries will receive millions of dollars. They didn't know what they were doing. So after they signed the document, the people them decide to take their lives, and they had to escape, do all sorts of to escape. These people had to return back, to return to their own country, to build the dreams in their own country. The book is very adventurous. I write it say that appeals to the people, to appeal to the readers, and they will get caught up in this whole thing, that they will just want to keep reading. It's a very interesting and enjoyable book. They wind up that the kids destroy the scammers, they destroy those people who set them up, and they escape back to their own country to build a dream in their own country. That they hope that people will know what's going on in the country, and they will prepare themselves. So anybody who wants to sign documents they don't understand, they should refrain from doing it.
All right, Michael, thank you for the warning. And that's another year in the can for the Page Publishing Book Club. I can't believe it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading at 710 WOR. And thank you so much, Rob the engineer. Have a happy. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.